Livewire's trim out procedures. This tutorial covers the general steps you should follow when doing a trim out for Livewire. To trim out means to complete the final connections for all cables run during the rough-in procedure. This is done in a new construction house after the drywall has been installed. It is typically done after the electricians have finished their trim out in the house. However, as you will see in this video, that is not always the case. The order that the technicians do a trim out may vary based on the types of cables and equipment installed and the number of technicians on the job. This video will give you an overview of the steps to be completed. Let's take a look at a trim out done the Livewire way. The first step when you arrive at the house is to walk the house with the plan, just as we did in a rough-in. Remember, the plan is a detailed layout of the house with all the locations marked for video, data or phone, components to a security system, and the structured media center and security system enclosure. Each room that contains a location is listed on the right with details of what is installed in each room and the corresponding number. Each number is also listed on the house layout to the left, so you can see the placement of each location. As we mentioned in previous videos, the plan is available as an attachment for the job in Zoho. As you walk the house, make sure you see all of the locations marked on the plan. While filming, we ran into a situation where we were unable to locate a location marked on the plan. The plan marked the first location above the fireplace. However, as you can see, the wall above the fireplace was completely covered in stones. Either the stonemason covered the first location or the first location had been relocated. We checked around the room and found a video location which had not been marked on the plan in the corner of the room. If this happens to you, you cannot just assume that the location was moved. You must call the sales rep to verify that the location had been moved and agreed upon by the builder and/or homeowner. Also, make sure you are using the most up-to-date plan by using your iPad to access the job on Zoho. When in doubt, it's best to over-communicate with the sales rep. As we had mentioned in the rough-in video, please always make sure that any changes made to the plan are marked on the plan and initialed by either the builder or homeowner. In our case, the sales rep confirmed that the location for the coax cable had been moved from the fireplace to the corner of the room. The plan on Zoho had been updated and initialed, and the paper plan our technicians had was not the most recent one. This is why communication is key. After verifying all of the work that is to be completed during the trim out procedure, it's time to move on to the second step, bringing in the supplies. Make sure to bring in all the wall plates, connectors, security system components, and tools you need for the job. Since you checked on everything before leaving Livewire, you should have everything you need in the van. Remember that even in a new construction house, you will very likely be sharing the house with other trades and/or the homeowners. The day that we were filming, there were others there installing cabinets, countertops, and appliances. The homeowners even stopped by with their dog for a visit. So just remember to always be mindful of the others in the house and always be professional. As I mentioned earlier, there will most often be 2 technicians assigned to the job. Those technicians will work simultaneously on different tasks throughout the house. For the purposes of this video, we will show you what each technician is doing one at a time. Remember, however, that while we have given these tasks steps, many of these steps can be completed at the same time by 2 different people. We will see the first technician trim out each cable at each wall location. This means he will terminate the cable, add the keystone connector, the wall plate, and then label the location. We will also see this technician install all of the door contacts, motion sensors, and keypads for the security system. While the first technician is doing that, the second technician will install the security system enclosure. This means he will terminate all zones and connect the power supply, battery backup, and all other necessary security components. He will also complete the installation of the Structured Media Center, or SMC. This means he will terminate all of the cables, connect the coax splitter, phone module, and transformers, and label each cable. So starting with Technician 1, let's look at Step 3, trimming out each cable at each wall location. Many technicians like to start this step by going room to room and placing all of the appropriate wall plates and connectors by each location. That way, all of the materials you need are there when you get to the room. To begin, locate the cable in the wall. Clip the zip tie holding it to the mud ring and pull the cable out. Clip the cable to the desired length. This technician is working on a coax cable, so just as we learned to do in a previous training video, use your coax stripper to score the sheeting around the coax cable. Pull the sheeting off and fray out the layers of shielding, making sure not to leave any pieces that could eventually touch the center conductor or dielectric. Then push on the F connector and using the coax compression tool, crimp the F connector onto the coax cable. Make sure it is secure. Twist on the keystone F connector. Use a wrench to tighten it completely. Making sure you have the wall plate facing the correct way with the side labeled up on top, snap the keystone F connector into the wall plate. Now feed the cable back into the wall and screw the wall plate onto the mud ring. Make sure the wall plate is level, but be careful not to scratch up the wall in the process. Leave both screws lined up straight up and down. Now using the label maker, create a label with the number that corresponds to that location number on the plan. Place that label just above the cable on the wall plate. For phone or data, locate the cable in the wall just as you did for the coax. Clip the zip tie and pull the cable out of the wall. Clip it to the desired length. Terminate this Cat5 cable just as we learned to do in a previous video. Strip away the sheeting to expose the 4 twisted pairs. Untwist the twisted pairs and lay them across the punch-down slots in the RJ45 keystone connector. Make sure to trim it out to the appropriate standard, A or B. In this particular shot, the technician trimmed the phone to the T568A standard. If you are ever unsure, please check with your supervisor. Using the punch-down tool, punch each wire down in the appropriate slot. Make sure you always punch down on a hard surface like the floor. Holding the connector in your hand while trying to punch down the connections will not give you a secure enough surface to make the proper connections. Check the order of the wires again and make sure they are secure. Snap the keystone connector into the wall plate and screw on the wall plate, leaving the screws straight up and down, just as you did for the coax cable. Print out a label and put that label just above the connector on the wall plate. To trim out the location of a conduit install, first make sure the wall plate will fit correctly. In this case, the technician had to trim the front part of the conduit to make sure the wall plate would fit correctly. Then, just screw the wall plate onto the mud ring, leaving the screws lined up straight up and down. As you can see here, there is a hole showing on the left of the wall plate. Always try to cover up the holes completely, but if you are unable to do so, let the builder or superintendent of the job site know if they are there. If they are not on site, let Livewire know when you call in at the end of the job. If the house was roughed in for a central vacuum system, you will need to add the inlet cover to each inlet location in the house. As mentioned in the rough-in video, you will see the 2 low-voltage wires coming out of the wall location of the inlet. Each wire will have 2 poles, a positive or plus and a negative or minus. Sometimes you may see red and black sheathing, as we did in the rough-in video. For these low-voltage wires, there is a yellow line down the side of one. First, separate each side of each wire and cut back the sheathing of each one. Once you have trimmed the sheathing back for each wire, put the yellow striped wires, or positive ones, together, and the non-striped wires, or negative ones, together. Twist both of the positive ones together and twist both of the negative ones together. The technician here has curved each side into a U shape to better fit around the screws on the inlet cover. Now, put the wires with the yellow stripe around the screw that is marked positive and use a screwdriver to tighten it down over the wires. Do the same to the other side. Make sure both are secure. Now place the inlet cover over the opening in the wall and, using the screws that came with the cover, screw the inlet cover on. Now you will do this for each inlet location in the house. This takes us to the next step, step 4, installing all door contacts, motion sensors, and keypads for the security system. To install the door contacts, remove the placeholder or dummy contact. You may be installing a recessed wired or wireless contact. If the contact is wired, you will need to strip the sheathing away from the cable. You will see 4 wires, green, white, red, and black. For door contacts, you will use the green and white wires. The red and black would be used for power, however, you don't need power for door contacts because they use magnets to open and close the circuit. The door contact has screw-down terminals, so unscrew each screw. Put in the correct wires and screw each back down tightly. Place the contact back into the wall. Since the door contacts use magnets to trigger the circuit, there must be a magnet placed into the actual door. To place this piece, first measure the height of the door contact in the door frame and mark this point on the actual door. Drill a hole in the center of the door at this height using the correct size drill bit, matching the size of the contacts you use. In our case, we used a 3/4 inch sized paddle bit. Drill in as far as you need to get the magnetic part of the door contact in place. Then push it into the hole flush with the door. If a dummy contact was not installed during the rough-in phase because the door had not been installed, you will see a hole in the drywall close to the location with the appropriate cable. In this case, you can see that the interior garage door had not been installed, so the technicians had run the cable to a location right next to the door. For this, you will need to first drill from the door frame towards the hole with the cable. To do this, start with the correct size drill bit for the door contact you are using. In our case, we used the 3/4 inch paddle bit again, drilling it straight into the door frame where the door contact will go. As you can see, this technician has marked how far he wants to drill on the actual drill bit. Please be mindful of what you are drilling. Weather stripping and transoms, which are detail windows next to a door, can easily be ruined if you're not careful while drilling. After making the hole for the contact, using a smaller flex bit, drill the rest of the way to the cable location. You may have to drill at a slight angle to reach it. You can then use a fish stick to pull the cable through, or you can feed the cable through the hole you just drilled so it comes out in the door frame. Now you can follow the same steps you just followed to install the door contacts. With regards to the hole left in the drywall, some builders will require you to install a blank plate over the hole. Others will take care of repairing the drywall themselves. Make sure you know what is required of you before leaving. Motion sensors are installed per the manufacturer's guidelines. First, measure and mark this location on the wall. Then pull the cable through the hole in the back plate of the motion sensor and screw the back plate in the appropriate location. Make sure it's level and also make sure it completely covers the hole in the drywall. Builders and homeowners do not want to see holes in the wall after the equipment has been installed. The sensor itself should be located at the height indicated by the manufacturer, so think about where the sensor is actually located when installing the back plate. The sensor is approximately halfway down from the top of the unit. The motion sensor is screwed in at an angle between the two walls in the corner. You can see that one screw is put into each side. Next, connect the wires. To do this, you will need to strip the cable coming out of the wall. You will see 4 wires, red, black, green, and white. The red and black wires are for power. The red will go into the location marked with a plus sign, positive. The black will go into the location marked with the minus sign, negative. The white wire will go into the location marked NC, which stands for normally closed. Some technicians like to remember this by thinking no color for NC, so white would go there. The green will go into the location marked C, which stands for common. Just like the door contacts, these are screw-down terminals. Once you have connected the wires and placed the circuit board back into the unit, you can snap on the front cover of the motion sensor. Keypads are installed in one or more locations so the homeowner can control the security system. There will be a primary keypad, and all the other keypads are known as secondary keypads. In this case, the primary keypad is being installed in the master bedroom. As you can see, in addition to the security cable run to this location, there is also a Cat5 cable. This could be used at a later time for potential telephone backup or for an IP connection. However, you do not need to hook this up now. Instead, leave the Cat5 in the wall, accessible through the hole if need be later. Be careful not to let it fall back down into the wall. It does no good if someone can't get to it easily later. Unpack the keypad from the box. Since this is the primary keypad and we will need it to communicate with the secondary keypad, the technician takes out the receiver that comes in the unit and puts in the transceiver that will communicate with the secondary keypad. Now place the battery for backup and hook that up, as long as the electrician has been out and electricity has been turned on at the location of the security system enclosure in SMC. In our case, we had to detach the battery before installing because electricity was not hooked up yet and we didn't want to drain the backup battery. Install the back plate of the keypad by pulling the cable through the hole, leveling the plate, centering it on the electrical box below it, and screwing it into the wall. You may need to add drywall anchors for a better hold. Strip the sheathing from the cable coming out of the wall. You will see 4 wires, red, black, yellow, and green. You will only use the red and black for power. The transceiver makes it possible for the keypad to communicate with the security system wirelessly, so you do not need to hardwire it. Again, this is a screw-down terminal, and you will put the red wire where it is marked positive and the black wire where it's marked negative. Now snap the front of the keypad into place. If there had been electricity, the technician would have also programmed the keypad. However, that is something you will learn to do in an upcoming video. If the keypad came with a quick start user guide, you can roll that up and tuck it behind the security system. You will take the entire box and manuals back to Livewire with you. If the homeowner calls Livewire to set up service, you will take the keypad manuals with you then and go over everything at that time. The secondary keypad is installed much like the primary keypad. However, you don't have to worry about switching out a receiver. You only have to attach the red and black wires for power. Again, this is a screw-down terminal, and red is positive, black is negative. Had there been electricity, the technician would have programmed this keypad as well. Now we can take a look at what the second technician has been working on while we have been following the first technician. This brings us to step 5 in our procedures, installing the security system enclosure. As you learned in the rough-in video, the security system enclosure is typically located close to the SMC. To begin, take the cables out of the wall by clipping the zip tie attached to the mud ring. After taking out the cables, you will want to install the security system enclosure. Some security system enclosures will have a hole or knockout in place for the cables to run through. However, some security system enclosures do not have this, and you will have to drill it. In order to drill a hole for the cables to come through, use a small bit to drill an initial hole, and then use a step bit to make the hole bigger. This way, all of the cables coming out of the wall will be able to go into the enclosure from the back. These enclosures will have pre-drilled holes already for mounting. Measure the location for the first screw, mark it, and screw that into a stud. Then, place the enclosure up on that screw and mark the location of the other screw that will go into the drywall. Make sure it's level. Add a drywall anchor for extra security and screw the enclosure into the wall. Secure both screws. Now you can work on the cables. In our case, we see 2 18-4 cables, 1 for each keypad, 5 22-4 cables, 1 for each zone, including the 3 door contacts and 2 motion sensors, and 1 16-2 cable to power the security power board. Depending on what security system is being installed, the 18-4 cables, which provide power for the keypads, will either be run into the security system enclosure or it will be run straight into the SMC. While filming, we noticed that power had been run into the security system enclosure. However, we were installing a 2 gig system, and that system requires the power to be run straight into the SMC. So the technician is rerouting the power to the SMC by running another 18-4 cable from the security system enclosure up into the SMC. He pulls back the sheeting from the cable, moves the green and yellow wires out of the way by twisting those around the cable. He then strips the red wires and twists all 3 of those together and adds a twist-on wire connector. He does the same for the black wires. Again, this step would not usually occur. Usually the cables coming from the keypads, since this is a 2 gig system being installed, would have run straight into the SMC. Since he has finished that, he tucks those wires to the side in the enclosure and can begin the usual steps in this procedure. Since the completion of the security system installation largely depends on the type of system being installed and the security system components, you will learn more specifically about the completion of the security system enclosure in an upcoming video. When all zones have been terminated and the power supply, battery backup, and necessary security components have been completed, the security system enclosure is almost finished. You will have a few Livewire stickers. One is a window sticker to show that the house is monitored by Livewire. Since the homeowner hasn't yet set up service, put this sticker inside the enclosure. Keep the other stickers out. Simply close the door and screw it closed using the 2 corner screws. Add the Livewire sticker to the front of the enclosure. However, it's important that you put the sticker in the center of the door, not over the screw. The Call Livewire to Activate Service sticker should be stuck to the keypad. The security system enclosure is now complete. This brings us to step 6, completing the installation of the SMC. First, connect any power transformers. In our case, we had 2, a white transformer for the keypads and a black transformer for the security system's power supply. Terminate each coax cable. Again, to do this, cut the cable to the desired length, use your coax strippers to score and remove the sheeting, fray out the layers of shielding, making sure not to leave any that could eventually touch the center conductor or the dielectric, push on the F connector, and use your coax compression tool to crimp it on. This is done to all of the coax cables in the SMC, including the white feed cable. Then use a labeler to label each cable. Now terminate the twisted pair cabling. In our case, we have two Cat5 cables, one coming from the bedroom where we saw the other technician terminated at the wall earlier, and we have the feed. For all the Cat5s, including the feed, score the sheeting and untwist all of the twisted pair. Then, just for all of the twisted pair cables except the feed, you will want to add an RJ45 connector. As you remember from a previous video, you will want to put the wires in the appropriate order, trim them, and wiggle the wires into the RJ45 connector pins. Make sure the sheeting is up under the connector and that the wires are all the way to the end of the connector, touching the end of the contacts. Then, use your RJ45 crimpers to crimp the connector on securely. Leave the Cat5 feed alone for right now. We'll show you what to do with that in just a minute. We're now ready for step 7, testing the connections. This is one of the most important steps. To do this, you will use the Resi tester. One technician will go around the house to each wall plate while the other technician stays at the SMC. Here you can see that the technician has attached the Resi tester to a coax cable location. He lets the other technician who is standing at the SMC know the location number and type of connection. In this case, he told him coax location 2. The technician at the SMC, using his part of the Resi tester, connects the coax cable labeled 2. The Resi tester displays the type of connection and whether or not it passes or fails the test. As you can see, in this case, the connection was good because the Resi tester shows video and pass. For the phone or data, the technician walking the house will attach the Resi tester and let the other technician know the location number and type of location. Here, he told him phone location 4. Again, the technician at the SMC connects the phone cable marked 4 and looks at the Resi tester. The tester again displays the word pass, so we know the connection is good. If it wasn't good, the display would blink, showing you where the connection was bad. Once the technicians have checked all of the coax and phone or data connections in the house, we can continue step 6 and finish the installation of the SMC. Add the cable splitter by connecting the feed to the part labeled input or feed. Connect the other locations to the connectors labeled out. Then, snap this in place in the back of the SMC. Now, connect the phone module. Install the feed where it is indicated. In our case, the feed was punched down in the slots here. Starting with the first terminal, plug in the phone or data cables. In our case, we only had the one. Now snap the phone module in place in the back of the SMC. If electricity had been run to the SMC already, you could plug in the power transformers. Finally, add the door by screwing it into place, close it, and lock it. Add the Livewire sticker to the center of the SMC. Now you're finished with this step and ready to move on to the next step. Step 8 is to clean up and reload the van. Make sure to clean up any wood shavings from the drilling and trash left from the trim out today. Load all of the tools and supplies back into the van. Now you can go on to step 9. Walk the house with the plan again. This time as you walk the house, make sure you check that each location marked on the plan has been trimmed out at its location. Make sure that all trash has been removed and that screws on the wall plates are facing straight up and down. This is the time that you check to make sure everything has been completed correctly. When you know all of the work to be done has been completed, call into the sales rep and update the job status on Zoho. Make sure you include a punch list of anything that you were not able to do that day. The punch list lets Livewire know what else needs to be completed by a Livewire technician at that location at a later time. In our case, since electricity had not been completed at the SMC, we included programming the security system keypads on the punch list. That's it. You've just learned how to complete a trim out the Livewire way. As I mentioned earlier, the order of the steps may change or occur simultaneously based on the number of technicians on the job and the job itself. However, after watching this video, you should have a secure understanding of all of the steps that must happen during a Livewire trim out.